In this video, we're going to be talking about why you need to raise your prices, like yesterday. Hey, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Allison. I play the violin, and I also run this community called Musicians Blueprint, where we share best practices amongst musicians. And I make these videos because I know that there are a lot of musicians out there who feel a little alone and sometimes a tad bit lost on their journey as a performance musician, and I do not want you to be one of them. So if you'd like to journey along together, please feel free to hit that subscribe button below and let's carry on together here. Now we are going to walk through 5 reasons together of why you should be raising your prices. Let's dive right into the first one, which is that you are probably undercharging. So this is especially for those musicians who set their prices in years past. Now, just because at the time you set the price at something that felt like a lot doesn't mean that it still currently is a lot. We have to understand that the way that our clients are looking at our prices and we're looking at our prices are entirely different. I mean, they just spent $7,000 on photographer, perhaps a few thousand on flowers, whatever it is. And so what might seem like a lot to us really might not be to them. So again, I would say, especially if you're in that bracket that has, set your prices in years past, or even just based off of what someone told you was, the right thing to charge, I would encourage you to do some research and learn that perhaps you are undercharging what the market is currently happy to pay. Now, I can already hear some of you saying that, hey, Allison, I know all the other so-and-sos, like guitarist or whatever, in my area, and we all charge around the same amount. And we've been doing that for like the past 10 years, but I can't charge more than them. This is just what it is. I can't do anything about it. I'm going to try to address these concerns here. First of all, I would say that just because the musicians are charging a certain amount, there's no law or rule that says that you need to do what everyone else is doing and not move along with what the market is happy to pay. So with that said, I might propose to you that it'd be a good idea to try to expand your perspective a little bit to, see what those musicians who are doing who really inspire you and, actually get some real information of what the market's willing to pay. So again, I encourage you to look a little broader. If you're just seeing musicians in your area to charge a certain amount, there's a high probability that if we expand our horizons, then we will find that it's validated that people are willing to pay, more than they were 10 years ago for your music services. We just have to be looking in the right places. On to the second reason that you should raise your prices, and that is because you will make more money. Big surprise there, but hear me out. I'm saying that a lot of musicians are concerned that if they raise their prices, they're actually going to make less because they're going to get more no's as a result. Now, I want to address this fear. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I am saying if people want something, especially, a luxury service like live music, they are usually willing to pay more to get something they're actually wanting and excited about. So if you are that musician for people, and even if you're charging more than you used to or more than other people are in your area or in your circle as you know it, the likelihood that they're going to say no if they really want something just because your prices have increased is relatively low. Why can I say this? I can say this because I used to charge so ridiculously little. I would literally charge $60 for my service as a violinist when I started out, to now I regularly charging over $1,000 for my ensembles, and I can actually measure the acceptance rate of the gigs I was getting, and there was little to no change in terms of my acceptance rate with the gigs. So it was almost like there's this point where it's irrelevant to our clients of how much we're charging. When I was recharging ridiculously low, trust me that they were nice enough to pay me more anyways. But I am just saying, being on both ends of the spectrum, understanding that I just, in the way that I thought as a musician, I didn't want to lose the gig, and I didn't want to charge too much. In those positions, I've been absolutely, and I've also been on the other side of it now and kind of grown into that where it's just like, well, hey, I understand that the people who actually want to work with us actually want to pay what we're worth and are happy to do so and aren't, nickeling and diming, comparing. I just want to share that, yes, if you are something that people want and you raise your prices to something that they are willing to pay, then you will make more money, not less. Now, moving on to the third reason why you should be raising your prices, and this is because your business, your band, your ensemble needs profit. So let me explain. Profit is what is left over from a gig after everyone is paid. Now, the problem with a lot of musicians pricing and creating profit to begin with is that they start at creating this structure from the wrong end of the spectrum. They think to themselves from their own perspective, what am I happy to do this gig for? What is each musician happy to walk away with from this gig? Say every musician wants to be paid $100 an hour. Voila, we can charge, you have a quartet, $400 an hour, bam, simple, ready to go. That's our pricing. Well, as most of you who are watching this will know, that does not last long. And when there's zero profit, then the longevity of your ensemble or band is virtually nothing, because the person who's actually doing the work, which is, presumably the work that we're not as much a fan of as the actual playing of the gig, like actually booking the leads and actually working with clients and getting the band together, all of that work is basically valued at $0, and you're probably going to end up with a band leader that feels a little resentful at it, even if they don't say it outwardly. And this is why most bands and ensembles just end up dissolving over time, is because they can't hack this, they can't figure this out, they can't figure out how to get people paid appropriately so that there is great feelings all around, longevity to what they're doing, and general excitement about what they're doing. So this is why, profit is extremely important. We don't only want to make sure that people are getting paid for every part of the job that they're doing, but that there's even then some left over, okay? And the some left over is not a bad thing just to have, but it's also there for things that aren't fixed costs for gigs, like maybe you're investing into video production at a later point or whatever it is. When you think of your ensemble or band as its own, entity, and like making sure that it's taken care of in that equation too, that's what profit is essentially. So this can be a little tricky for some bands to figure out. Maybe you're already getting paying yourself somehow as the band leader and coordinator, and that's great, you should be, but you're still trying to figure out, is my business profitable? How can I understand if my business is profitable enough? Well, as a simple rule of thumb, if you can't pay someone to do what you're doing and still have money left over, then no, you're not profitable, which means we need to be more profitable. So what do I mean? I'll take you to an example for myself. When I started charging what I call the booking fee to book my quartet, I would charge $25. Now, there is no way, I'm not saying I wasn't happy to do it, but there's no way that I could have hired someone to do everything I did to, get those gigs booked. Now, this is especially a big pitfall for musicians who happen to be good or willing to learn the parts of their business that they can't outsource. For example, I happen to be really passionate about web design. And when I think about, when I was starting out as a musician, the type of websites that I would build and the profitability I had, I could have never hired someone to do what I did for us, which of course paid itself off, especially when we started, increasing our prices so that it was worth a while that I put that effort in the website. But it's just, when you look back, when I was making those websites, I could never have afforded to charge to pay someone $5,000 to $10,000 to build a website, because there's literally nothing left over. And these are the quality of websites I was building. So this is a big pitfall when you're doing things yourself. It's really hard to measure your own time and how much that's worth. And it's easy to just, be nice, especially because we're working with friends, and just kind of sweep it under the rug and just pretend like, there wasn't actual value that was created there. That was. Just because you didn't pay someone to do it doesn't mean it wasn't value. And I started realizing this when I started to work, learn more about tools that could help me manage my business. I started thinking like, I could pay $30 a month and this would really save me some time doing this. And then I thought to myself, I don't have an extra $30 a month because there's no profit. This is where I was back at that time. So that's when I realized like, wow, I'm valuing my time at $0 because I can't buy a simple tool to help me free up time. So if any of that's resonating and you're in that position, we want to be buying tools to free up our time as much as possible, because as a musician, your time is very valuable. So that's a side note, but basically I hope you get what I'm saying. We need to make sure that everything that happens for a gig, that we could potentially pay someone to do it and there still be money left over profit-wise, even after the musicians are paid. And that's how you know you have a business that's going to last, because you know that profit there will be able to be used to innovate, keep you relevant, and having fun working with your fans and clients in the future. So that's the rough equation there. So how profitable should an event music business be? This is a great question, and there's not a lot of details out there on it. So I'm hesitant to give exact numbers of how most people go about this. I will tell you that agencies are taking a 25% cut for just booking the gig. And they didn't do anything to build that brand, that presentation, that, the value of the offer or the management of the gig. That's just the process of getting the gig was 25% of the entire gig's worth. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective. Of course, that's obviously a valuable piece to actually get the gig, but there's that and a whole lot more when it comes to actually building an ensemble, a band, a business with its own brand, its own reputation, and everything that goes along with that. So hopefully you're tracking with me. If you're not profitable, you need to raise your prices, keep your musicians happy, and make sure that your business is getting taken care of as well. Now, the fourth reason of why you should raise your prices is because your future self, team, and business is going to thank you. Now, we all know that when we're booking gigs, it's usually not for something the next day. It's often for something months or even years in the future. So I know in the moment when you're talking to the lead, in the moment you might be, if you're still working through some mindset things, you might be thinking that they're going to think it's a large number, what you're saying. But I can promise you, by experience, I've never gotten to a gig season, and when the gig actually comes into fruition, I thought to myself, man, I charged way too much for this gig. It usually seems appropriate, if you did it right by the time that you actually get to the gig. So just remember that, in the moment that you are working with the client and scared that they are not going to, accept your pricing, think that it's too high or whatever it is, that's a very different moment than the moment that you're actually playing the gig. It's actually months, even years in advance. So we need to, first of all, come from the mindset thinking that, like we've talked about earlier, think from their mindset of what they're looking at and how they're excited to pay well for something that they really want. So if you can be that person, then don't worry about your pricing. And second of all, think about what you're going to have to do between then and now, not just getting the deposit, but actually playing the gig in the future and, making sure that you, your team, your business is well taken care of when it actually comes into fruition, even though it's far away. You don't want to feel resentful by the time you get there. Fifth and final reason you should raise your prices is because it lifts the standards of the industry as a whole. So far too many musicians are getting paid and charging the same amount as they were 5-10 years ago. And really, these are often the same musicians who are spending a lot of their focus and energy being worried about some musicians undercutting them or charging less. So I would like to propose that if we change the focus to our clients and wowing them, we really have nothing to fear in terms of raising our prices and charging what they're happy to pay. And of course, as more musicians do this, the more the standard is raised and, it just becomes something that is more common, a little less scary, but I'm not saying we don't need to take any steps of faith at all here. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. It's been amazing hanging out with you all. Thank you for joining me, sticking around till the end. So since you're here with me still, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of those 5 reasons struck a chord hardest with you? Let me know in the comments below any other thoughts, questions, all that good stuff. You definitely feel free to connect with me. I'll have my links in the description here, so you can feel free to connect with me there as well on my other social channels. Have a lovely day, and we will talk very soon.